Page 746, lesson 12.4 is on box and whisker plots. This first part of the video I'm going to skim through a little bit because we already watched a video on quartiles. So I have a video on quartiles that goes with this. One thing I wanted to make sure I did mention though is what's called the interquartile range. So interquartile range is the difference between the third and the first quartiles. So once we found our median, we found our lower quartile, we found our upper quartile, then we can find our interquartile range. So interquartile range basically then is going to tell us how spread out the middle 50% of the data is. And once again, when we go to make the box and whisker plot, we're going to have 5 points. We're going to find the median. We're going to find the lower quartile, upper quartile, and then we're going to also be able to look at what our lower extreme are, or sometimes called the minimum. That's the lowest number. And then we'll also look at what our upper extreme or maximum, which is the highest number. Those 5 points will make our box and whisker plot. And what you do, you just put dots at those points. You have whiskers going from the lowest number and the highest number going towards the middle, and then you're going to have 2 boxes in the middle part of your box and whisker plot. So you have these 2 boxes in the middle, and then you have the 2 whiskers on the outside. Each section contains each section contains 25%, and then the box, I was looking at that when I was reading, the box in the middle, since it has 2 sections, that would contain 50% of the data altogether. So page 748, if we look at problem 2, the table at the right shows the amount of crops harvested in the United States for a certain period. What box and whisker plot represents the data? So you can see here's all the information. Each year, how many million acres of crops were harvested in the United States. And then what they did, they took all those numbers and they put them in order from least to greatest. So you can see the lowest number is 303, the highest number is 321. Okay, so pretty consistent in the number of million acres that they harvested each year. The median, there were a total of 11 numbers, and you might think, well, it went to 10. Well, it started at year 0, so there's actually 11 numbers there. So we actually do have just one median, just one middle number, which is 314 million. We have 5 numbers below that. So 5 numbers, the median of those numbers would be the 311. The book's calling it Q1. That's also known as your lower quartile. And then you have 5 numbers above the median. So the middle of those would be 316. Again, the book calls it Q3. That's also known as the upper quartile. And then our other points on our box and whisker plot, we're going to have the minimum value is 303. The maximum value is 321. And those will be the 5 numbers that we'll be working with for our box and whisker plot. A little different in the book, for whatever reason, they are doing this below the number line. I've usually seen them above the number line, but I guess either way is fine. Notice on their box and whisker plot, when they drew that, they put a title, crops harvested in millions of acres. Obviously, these numbers are really big, and so there's no need to put a 0 on your number line or anything. We're just can start at 300 million, and we're all kind of in that same general vicinity there. And then they drew their box and whisker plot. So to get a little practice with this, we're going to look at this with the got it 2. So this is monthly sales in millions of dollars of audio devices. and they want us to make a box and whisker pot. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we get these numbers put in order. So I think if I've done this correctly, I've got 4, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, 16, 25, 34. So if you look at this, then we have a total of 10 numbers. 10 numbers means we're going to have 2 middle numbers. So actually the 14 and 15 are our 2 middle numbers. To find your median, then you can either add those together and divide by 2, or you can just think about what's halfway in between 14 and 15. So it's 14.5 or 14.5 would be our median. And what we need to remember for our next step is we actually have all these 5 numbers that are below the median. And that's how we're going to decide on our lower quartile. So lower quartile, there's 5 numbers. The middle of those is 9, so 9 would be our lower quartile. And upper quartile, the same idea. We have all 5 of these numbers above the median. So this 16 is going to be our upper quartile. So upper quartile is 16. And now we have enough information that we can make our box and whisker pot. So make a number line. We do need to put a title at some point. Just try and make sure you give yourself enough space to put that, depending if you're putting your box plot above or below. I said box plot. They call it sometimes a box plot or box and whisker plot. Those can be used interchangeably. So this is monthly sales in millions of dollars. And again, we don't have to get to 0 on our number line, but we do need to at least see up from 4 to 34. It's up to you how you want to do this. I think what I'm going to do is actually go, I think maybe I will start at 0. And I'm going to go by 5s, but I'm just going to put little marks in between. Okay? So there's 5, 10, 15, and so on. All right, now I was kind of afraid I was going to run out of room, so they're a little bit tighter together on some of those probably than what they should be. And then we're just going to draw our box and whisker pot. So we're going to start with the lowest number, which was 4. So we'll put a dot there. And then we had lower quartile was 9. Median was 14.5. Upper quartile was 16. And then our upper extreme, our maximum value is 34. Okay, once we've drawn those 5 dots, then we're just going to put a whisker here on the outside. And then we've got a box, and another box, and another whisker. Okay, and this just helps with the box and whisker pot. It helps us to see how the numbers are distributed, because there's 25% of the numbers, once again, in each one of those sections. So 25% of the time they sold between 4 million and 9 million. 25% of the time they sold between 9 million and $14.5 million. 25% of the time they sold between 14.5 and 16 million, and 25% of the time they sold between 16 million and 34 million. So, you know, you can see that's a big spread for that last 25%. That's a pretty wide variance, as opposed to this one second box that we had. That's really tight together. 25% of the time they were really consistent with their sales. If we look at problem 3, they want us to use the Box-and-Whisker plot below, and what do the interquartile ranges tell you about the average monthly rainfall for each city? So, like we mentioned earlier, interquartile range is the difference between the lower quartile and upper quartile. So if we're looking at Miami, here's our lower quartile, here's our upper quartile. For New Orleans, here's our lower quartile, here's our upper quartile. So interquartile range would be the difference between those. It's hard to exactly tell for Miami what that number is there and what that number is there. Maybe it's 2 1/4 and 7 1/4. If that was the case, again, I don't know that for sure, but if that was the case, that interquartile range would be 5. What that tells us is each section's 25%. So 50% of the time, there's a range of 5 inches for the monthly rainfall in Miami. For New Orleans, these numbers are, that's close to 5 and 6. Let's just say 5 and 6, even though maybe that's not exactly right. Okay, so that tells us 50% of the time, New Orleans rainfall for the month only varies by 1 inch. Okay, so New Orleans is a lot more consistent on how much rain they get. Miami is more varied. And then the guide at 3 talks about the medians. So median for Miami is 4.5, and for New Orleans is maybe 5 1/4. So that just tells us basically half the time that Miami got less than 4.5 inches, and half the time they got more than that. New Orleans, half the time, the book is saying 5 3/10. I'm not sure how we would tell that exactly, but half the time New Orleans got less than 5 3/10 inches of rain. Half the time they got more than 5 3/10 inches of rain in a month. So this gives you an idea of how to work with Box-and-Whisker plots. Have a good day.